we decided that TikTok was a national security threat.
It's a national security threat.
Poses a national security threat.
It's not censorship, it's national security.
It poses a threat to national security.
The priority here, though, is national security.
National security.
National security. National security.
National security.
National security.
National security.
National security.
This is not an attempt to ban TikTok. It's an attempt to make TikTok better. Tic-tac-toe. A winner. A winner.
Oh, Nancy. I wonder if you had your last bottle of wine before making that speech at the Capitol. You know what gets me about this? Is that this bill, somehow, some reason, is getting full bipartisan support.
The bill passed in a landslide.
The yeas are 352, the nays are 65.
Amazing. When you normally don't see Congress seeing eye to eye on most legislation, for some reason, this TikTok bill has them coming together wholeheartedly and quickly to get it passed. It's not like something like this has led to disasters before, right? Right?
At this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger.
Indeed, the facts and Iraq's behavior show that Saddam Hussein and his regime are concealing their efforts to produce more weapons of mass destruction.
Wow. Unconfirmed reports about Gaddafi being captured.
We came, we saw, he died. Did it have anything to do with your visit?
Ascertained that was not the fact, and the American people could have known that within days, and they didn't know that.
With all due respect, the fact is we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
The U.S. government told us all that swine flu could turn out to be a killer that could spread across the nation. And Washington decided that every man, woman, and child in the nation should get a shot to prevent a nationwide outbreak, a pandemic. Well, 46 million of us obediently took the shot. And now 4,000 Americans are claiming damages from Uncle Sam amounting to $3.5 billion because of what happened when they took that shot. By far the greatest number of the claims, 2/3 of them, are for neurological damage or even death.
All right, breaking news. Pharmaceutical giant Pfizer just announced moments ago that its coronavirus vaccine is 95% effective.
You got the vaccination?
Yeah.
Are you okay? I mean, you seem, no, it works. Or or the mom and dad, or the neighbor, or when you go to church, or when you're, no, I really mean it. There are trusted interlocutors.
Huh?
Well, maybe things won't be bad this time around. We shall see. But I want to draw your attention to the bill itself, specifically a section of the bill that has me and many others wondering how big the scope is when it comes to what the government can do. Because right now they're focusing on TikTok, but can they actually go after other websites and other companies? Now, here's a part of the bill I'm referring to: covered company. In general, the term covered company means an entity that operates directly or indirectly, including through a parent company, subsidiary, or affiliate, a website, desktop application, mobile application, or augmented or immersive technology application that permits a user to create an account or profile to generate, share, and view text, images, videos, real-time communications, or similar content. Has more than 1 million monthly active users with respect to at least 2 of the 3 months preceding the date of which a relevant determination of the president is made pursuant to paragraph 3B. Enables 1 or more users to generate or distribute content that can be viewed by other users of the website, desktop application, mobile application, and augmented technology. As we all know, Tim Pool He has this show, as you see on the right over here. He says this bill does not allow banning of news websites. Well, semantics at its best, as Hard Bastard pointed out, because a website, what does that mean? A website could be anything. At the discretion of the president, the determination of the president. And we see now how the DOJ is being weaponized against civilians, U.S. civilians. You've seen the government do this before. Okay, the government will go at great lengths to push out whatever agenda they have to push out. One example that came to mind recently was Operation Northwoods. Look that up if you don't know what that is. It has to do with the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Chief of Staffs, and JFK. Okay, look that up. That's as far as this government is willing to go. And don't think they won't even go farther than that. Okay, people in the government that you don't even know about, unelected officials, are still around today. So that's the main issue right now of this bill. Who does it affect? Is it only specific to TikTok or everyone else? I'm betting the latter, because why would they stop at just TikTok? Why would they stop at that? And now they're saying, oh, because it's so national security. Well, if national security is such a big thing when it comes to the Chinese, why isn't the U.S. stopping China from buying land in America? Why isn't the U.S. stopping China from buying real estate in America? Why isn't the U.S. doing all it can to prevent China from taking and buying things over here? Why are we allowing manufacturing to be going on over there? Why are all the pharmaceutical drugs, which is a whole nother story, being manufactured, most of them, in China? If they're talking about national security, how about our economy? Isn't it under a national security threat? So for them to just say this application is a national security threat, but all those other things, well, let them keep on doing it. It doesn't pass the sniff test. Websites like Instagram is doing a lot to the children today as well. Websites like OnlyFans are still around today. Websites that promote this culture that is just hurting the youth. You have to look a certain way, live a certain lifestyle. If you're not at this point in life that you're not successful, it's a fantasy. So I do wonder what it is exactly that is pointing to TikTok versus these other sites that are still around, that's still influencing boys and girls, men and women, like Instagram, Facebook, or whatnot. But they don't talk about those sites though, but they talk about TikTok. Well, it could be also because TikTok is a site where the FBI can't visit your headquarters and tell you, hey, you got to monitor what's on your site, like they did with Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. Remember this interview that Mark Zuckerberg had with Joe Rogan?
How do you guys handle things when they're a big news item that's controversial? Like there was a lot of attention on Twitter during the election because of the Hunter Biden laptop story. The New York Post.
Yeah, we have that too.
Yeah, so you guys censored that as well?
So we took a different path than Twitter. I mean, basically the background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. There was we thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant. So our protocol is different from Twitter's. What Twitter did is they said you can't share this at all. We didn't do that. What we do is we have, if something is reported to us as potentially misinformation, important misinformation, we also have this third-party fact-checking program because we don't want to be deciding what's true and false. And for I think it was 5 or 7 days when it was basically being determined whether it was false, the distribution on Facebook was decreased but people were still allowed to share it. So you could still share it, you could still consume it.
So when you say the distribution is decreased,
It got shared.
How does that work?
It basically, the ranking in newsfeed was a little bit less. So fewer people saw it than would have otherwise. So it definitely...
By what percentage?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's meaningful. But I mean, but basically, a lot of people were still able to share it. We got a lot of complaints that was the case. Obviously this is a hyper political issue, so depending on what side of the political spectrum, you either think we didn't censor it enough or censored it way too much. But we weren't sort of as black and white about it as Twitter. We just kind of thought, hey, look, if the FBI, which I still view as a legitimate institution in this country, it's like very professional law enforcement, they come to us and tell us that we need to be on guard about something, then I want to take that seriously.
Did they specifically say you need to be on guard about that story?
No, I don't remember if it was that specifically, but it basically fit the pattern.
So now the option for ByteDance, who owns TikTok, is to sell it most likely to an American company, or it will be banned in the USA. Now, I believe that they will eventually sell it to a company in the US. Now, people are saying that Google, Facebook, Meta, and even Apple right now, they've got hit with an antitrust lawsuit by the DOJ.
Earlier today, the Department of Justice, joined by 15 states and the District of Columbia, sued Apple in the U.S. District Court for the District of New Jersey for violating Section 2 of the Sherman Antitrust Act.
That because of these antitrust laws, that they're not going to be able to buy TikTok. I bet you they will find a way to get a company, an American company, that is susceptible to the government to buy TikTok. They'll find a way. They will find a way. Because the real problem is that with TikTok, the government can't control the narrative. They can't control the narrative. If you know about Operation Mockingbird, you know what I'm talking about.
During the initial investigation into Operation Mockingbird, a congressman asked William Colby, who was then the head of the CIA,
do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks? This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
Executive session meaning a closed session with only a handful of senators who are authorized to have access to classified information.
The narrative, I think, is the most important thing because TikTok is used by a younger generation, Gen Z and below. Okay. Myself, I'm a very early millennial. I would say even a late Gen X guy. So I don't relate to TikTok like that, but a lot of young folks use TikTok to get their information. They rather go to TikTok than go to mainstream media. And so the government has a hard time controlling the narrative on an application that's not housed entirely in the US. And I heard what Rand Paul said about how the business is divvied up and how 60% is owned by international investors, 20% is owned by the employees, and the other 20% is owned by the founder of TikTok. I know all that. However, ByteDance is still in China, and it may or may not have some influence by the Chinese government. They may or may not. But I know for sure the FBI is not going to influence TikTok. I can see that. Otherwise, this bill wouldn't exist. This bill wouldn't even be around. This bill wouldn't have passed the House so quickly to go to the Senate, and Biden already saying, oh, if it passes the Senate, I'm going to sign it. But there's another caveat to this. Another part of this story that only maybe a few people have been talking about. And it has to do with the narrative of what's going on between Israel and Palestine.
But I also want to point out that we have a major generational problem. All the polling I've seen, ADL's polling, ICC's polling, independent polling, suggests United States' support for Israel is not left and right. It is young and old. And so we really have a TikTok problem, a Gen Z problem, that our community needs to put the same brains that gave us Tagli, the same brains that gave us all these other amazing innovations, need to put our energy toward this, like fast. Because again, like we've been chasing this left-right divide, it's the wrong game. The real game is the next generation.
The Israeli influence, the Jewish lobby, cannot control the narrative anymore. They've lost control of the narrative from the mainstream media. We're in an information age. Now, that person, Jonathan Greenblatt, he's the CEO of the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, which is really a defamation league. I mean, for some reason, they have the audacity to define what racism is. They can skew the numbers and claim that anti-Semitism is on the rise to 900%.
The level of hatred directed at people who support the state of Israel is through the roof. I mean, look at these numbers. Imagine if we're another group of people, if it were black students or LGBTQ students who'd have been targeted, and the increases had gone up 900%.
1,000%, 1,500%, whatever helps with their narrative to get sympathy from the American people.
We need to talk about TikTok. TikTok, if you will, it is the 24/7 news channel of so many of our young people, and it's like Al Jazeera on steroids, amplifying and intensifying the anti-Semitism and the anti-Zionism with no repercussions.
And they're not alone. They have AIPAC.
When I come to AIPAC, I am with friends.
AIPAC is involved with getting Congress to do their bidding, pushing millions upon millions of dollars.
Working to, quote, expand and strengthen the U.S.-Israel relationship, end quote. But in a dramatic shift in policy, AIPAC began directly funding candidates and spending big on races in 2021. According to AIPAC, it donated money to 365 candidates from both parties, including every single member of both Democratic and Republican leadership in Congress. 109 Republicans who voted against the certification of the 2020 presidential election in America received campaign contributions from AIPAC. All in all, AIPAC gave money to 342 members of the 118th Congress. The 2022 elections were the most expensive midterms in American history, with a total cost of $8.9 billion spent.
There was a leaked document that came out recently of AIPAC's intentions from the American Prospect. AIPAC talking points revealed. Documents show that the powerful lobby is spreading its influence on Capitol Hill by calling for unconditional military aid to Israel and hyping up threats from Iran. March 14th, 2024. Now, I'm not going to go over the entire article. I'm just going to point out some highlights here. The Prospect has obtained documents from the conference, AIPAC conference, that preview the PAC's lobbying blitz on Capitol Hill this week. The documents reveal AIPAC's legislative strategy and the talking points it will use to support an unconditional $14 billion military funding package that has thus far been held up, among other policy changes. They also include numerous positions on aspects of the U.S. response to the war that have not previously been made public, from abolishing the United Nations Relief and Work Agency for Palestine refugees in the Near East, to opposing recent restrictions imposed by the Biden administration on Israeli settlers. There is no mention of a two-state solution. This is damning evidence that AIPAC is completely aligned with the far right of the Israeli government, even as tensions emerge between Netanyahu and the Biden administration, said Reed Jair, advocacy director at Democracy for the Arab World Now. Though many of the policy positions are consistent with AIPAC's past advocacy, this trove of files offers a rare glimpse into the conversations the PAC holds with members of Congress behind closed doors and the arguments it's deploying. Though the primary motivation for the conference was lobbying, the event also informed members about the PAC's congressional spending plans. AIPAC has pledged to drop over $100 million on campaigns this election cycle to defeat any congressional candidate critical of Israel. The lobbying files promote the familiar, though contested, line that Israel does not target civilians. This has been questioned due to the sheer body count of Palestinian citizens, women, and children during the war compared to members of Hamas, along with the stated intentions by several Israeli officials to eliminate everything in Gaza. The IDF has justified the high casualty numbers by saying that Hamas weaponizes civilians as human shields, yet the IDF has authorized airstrikes on sites with dense civilian populations, such as hospitals and refugee camps, most recently at the Flower Massacre at the end of February, when the IDF opened fire on civilians gathered around an aid truck delivery, killing over 100. But even more controversial is that AIPAC is telling members of Congress that Israel is not blocking delivery of aid to Gaza, and that reports that people are starving in Gaza are false. Neither claim is supported by findings of international authorities, nor by recent actions undertaken by the United States government. Just last week, the U.S. airdropped aid packages into Gaza, circumventing Israeli border officials, and at the State of the Union address, President Biden announced intentions to set up a port for deliveries. These actions were only necessary because Israel has made it difficult to get aid through checkpoints, such as during one recent incident where the Israeli Navy fired at an aid convoy. The EU's foreign policy chief last week said that starvation in Gaza is being used as a weapon of war. AIPAC wants Congress to disregard not just credible international institutions, but also their own eyes, and to simply take Israel's word for what's happening in Gaza in spite of the Israeli government's ongoing pattern of disinformation, said Omar Badir, a policy analyst on Middle East affairs. So you see the ADL with Jonathan Greenblatt at the helm. You see AIPAC, the Jewish lobby in America, pushing for Israel's interest over America's. Those two groups, amongst others, not controlling the narrative when it comes to information. And TikTok is a place where they have the hardest time. And I believe, myself, that's the main reason for this bill passing. Over national security, over the welfare of the child who's watching these videos on TikTok. Again, I don't like TikTok for the type of content it has. However, I don't believe it should be banned. But they don't have control of the narrative anymore. They don't have control of what TikTok can put out there. So they're encouraging, with their money, Congress to push this bill. And that's where you have Democrats and Republicans holding hands to get this bill passed through the House, Senate, and for Biden to sign. That's my belief. That's my belief. The control that that group has in America is incredible, unbelievable. And many people are waking up to this. Many people are seeing what's happening in Gaza. Many people are seeing the atrocities that are being performed in that area of the world. The world is seeing what Israel is doing. They're seeing it with their eyes. They see the videos. They see the testimonies of people. They see the children dead. Parents holding them across the fields, holding them, a dead body, their child, crying. I'm not picking sides here. I'm just saying that I don't want killing on either side. I don't want death on either side, and particularly with innocent men, women, and children. And the narrative right now, the controlled narrative, quote unquote, is that Israel is the victim. Who cares what happens to Gaza? Or what happened on October 7th is on the same level as what is going on in Gaza.
Do you believe October 7th was uniquely evil and on a whole other level than anything going on, especially anything going on in Gaza or anything else right now?
The audacity of that man. The audacity. And now, as this recording, Candice Owens is no longer with the Daily Wire. Just to recap here, this bill is too broad. It's not, to me, going only after TikTok. It will allow the president to go after companies like Gab, companies like True Social, companies like Rumble, companies like Telegram, companies like BitChute, companies like Odyssey. How this bill is structured, it will allow the president at his discretion to go after these platforms. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, please take a moment to hit that like button, share it, and subscribe. Also, comment below. Let everyone know what you think of this bill. Why do you think it's getting pushed so quickly? And who's responsible? Until next one, guys, take care.